in the School of Information here at FSU. And he also has a courtesy appointment in the Department of Behavioral Sciences. That's all right. We've got some, we can get people to mute in the background. And he also is the, has an appointment in, as I mentioned, Department of Behavioral Sciences and Social Medicine in the College of Medicine. He's also the informatics lead on the FSU UF Clinical and Translational Science Award and the lead of the method core of the Center for Translational Behavioral Science. And we're all holding our fingers and hoping, crossing our fingers and toes and hoping that this AHRQ grant that he got a very good score on and for which he just submitted his response to reviewers, what, yesterday? Or today?
This morning, actually.
This morning.
Early this morning. Yeah.
Will serve as another research project that he'll be engaged in shortly. His research mainly lies in biomedical and health informatics, clinical research informatics, data mining, knowledge representation, machine learning, and particularly, I guess we can call it big data analytics. And the overarching goal of his research is really to improve the population health and advance biomedical research through collection, analysis, and application of EHR, electronic health record data from a variety of different sources. I'm not going to take up any more time on this and just let him get to his topic today. And so, using informatics and AI to support patients' comprehension of lab test results. Take it away.
Sure. Thank you so much, Dr. Charnis, and for inviting me to be part of this Brown Bag Series. And also thank everyone for joining this session this afternoon. No matter where you are, I really appreciate you spending time with us. And I want to kind of start this conversation and the presentation by saying that I always feel good about being part of this ISL family because my previous grants, which I got from NIH, typically start from getting a planning grant from ISL. So I'm really, really hopeful that this time we kind of follow the previous trajectory. And the reason why I'm really enthusiastic about this research is essentially because I have some family history, medical history that require us to get a lot of medical tests. And we felt that even with higher education, college education, postgraduate education, we still found it's extremely, concerning and very worrisome when you see lab test results. And that's actually also the case when I talk to many other friends, no matter what kind of age group they're in or what kind of career group they're in. So I feel very, kind of empathetic about people not be able to get the most accurate information, nor getting some sort of explanation when they receive lab information from their patient portals. So that's why we actually started this project a few years ago when I collaborated with my collaborator from Pace University and Indiana University, Purdue University, Indianapolis. I really hope that this work will fly with a lot of institutional support, with also some of my potential grant support. So I'm gonna start by saying like patient access to medical record data is actually a good thing, because now with the wide available use of electronic health records systems across different healthcare systems, it is easier for people to get access to their medical information. However, because medical data are collected in the medical setting with a sense that they are used primarily for billing, for medical insurance claims, and they're not on purposely for medical care. So the information there are collected in a way that is really hard to be digested and consumed by general patients with limited literacy. And with patient portals, people now have more widely access to medical information. And however, those information are oftentimes pushed to patients the same way they are being seen by their medical professionals. So you can think about this as I give you like, a kind of a high school, like, I give you like a research paper to someone with only 5th grade or 6th grade readings level, how can you expect them to be able to fully understand the information behind those medical data? So based on our understanding, patients oftentimes have used patient portals to view their medical information, to potentially communicate with their providers, to ask questions, or view their medication information, medical histories, and potentially also kind of putting some of their information in the systems. It is indeed the case that patients oftentimes find lab results very confusing and hard to understand due to their low literacy and complexity of the results behind those numbers. And also this reference actually was referred by Dr. Charnis a few months ago, and it kind of really give us some idea about why seeing lab results before your doctor speak to you may pose significant fear and may not be a really good thing. For example, in this article, they're saying even though the doctor says that the laws allows patients to see their medical information, it is good, but in practice, the raw test results can spark confusion at best and panic at worst. And sometimes patients misinterpret harmless information, and other times people may perceive bad news without an explanation that could cushion the blow. So this example saying this person had a patient learn about the cancer diagnosis from a smartphone notification in the middle of a business dinner, while reading a bedtime story to a 3-year-old and during a rush hour commutes. So one patient actually went to the emergency room for an anxiety attack after misinterpreting her husband's CT scan. So whether or not those medical information and the results should be pushed to patients without enough explanation or prior to they seeing the physician for such explanation is right now also a question. So so here we are seeing what actually we're typically seeing in lab portals. So for example, this is a typical way if you go to LabCorp, if you after you get a lab test results, a lab test done, you oftentimes see this is lab name, this is your result, this is different units of the results, and also this is reference interval indicating whether your results fall into this interval or outside of this interval. So as you can imagine, oftentimes people may find confusing when they see some lab test results falling out of range or some results that fall into range but close to abnormal range. And even with that, certain lab tests may have different value ranges that are considered as normal by different organizations. One lab test like thyroid hormone, TSH, which is a lab test that is often done to evaluate the thyroid function, have different value ranges given by different association. And also, if you are pregnant, during the pregnancy, you are expected to control your TSH level during different trimesters. So, for example, when my wife had the pregnancy, her doctor would want her to take some medications to lower the TSH level, so that the kid developing in the uterus will not be affected by the low level by the high level of TSH from your body organ. So this type of information is complicated, and given that a lot of lab tests actually have different interpretation by by different age group, by different gender, and also by different medical conditions, it is indeed a complex information for patient to consume. And previously, researchers have tried to understand this issue by conducting a different type of research. So in one research study conducted by researchers Gardina et al. In 2018, they interviewed 93 patients and found that nearly 2/3 of these patients did not receive any explanation of lab test results, and about half of them conducted online search to understand the lab results better. But as you can imagine, Google is a great thing, but Dr. Google may not always give you the most accurate medical information and advice. And people oftentimes found that if you have a question and you want to ask Google, they may give you some information that make you over concerned. But when you talk to a physician, the situation may not be that bad. And the researchers also have done some work in regarding looking at how to better present medical lab test results to patients. So for example, in this study conducted by Morrow et al. In 2019, they compared different representation, for example, in this format, in a table format, giving you different value ranges for different desirable range, borderline range, or high range, and so that you can actually see whether your value is desirable, optimal, or borderline. They also look at different ways for visualizing the lab test results value ranges. So like for example, in this one, they're saying this range is desirable range, and this one is borderline range, and this one is high range, so that it's easy to see whether your value is concerning or not. But all of the studies didn't really consider the demographics of patients, nor considering the literacy level of patients, and so the information presented this are less insightful. And another study which is really interesting, conducted by Zygmunt Fischer et al. In 2017, what they did is they look at different visualization on the same information. For example, in a table format, it's just typically what you typically see in patient portal or lab portals. And then they give you a different type of visualization. For example, they visualize this result using a single color coding with a gradient color shades to indicate where your results is. And also this one giving you different block line separated value range to indicate where you are, and this one is on a gradient line. So as you can imagine, even though this information are presented in a different way, they actually essentially presented the same exact accurate information. And based on the results, when they survey the respondents, the participants, in terms of regarding whether those values are posing some certain level of urgency, they look at different urgency score, and they found that from table to this visualization to this visualization to this visualization, the urgency score decreases. And these are actually have shown in this table that this is actually the case not only for this lab test platelet count, but also for other lab test results. So this type of research really prompted me to think about how to better visualize the information, at the same time providing a sort of guidance for patients to ask questions to their physicians, or even get some sort of interpretation from artificial intelligence and AI. So starting in 2018, we started some research project looking at trying to get a deeper understanding of how to better comprehend, how to better assess patient challenges and needs when it comes to lab test results comprehension. So we did a very simple online survey to look at the challenges, and then we follow up with some interview with 13 participants. And however, because we leverage online survey tools, we will not be able to get a lot of patients who are older adults. I think only about 3% of the people who participate in this study were older adults, which are a missed opportunity, because a lot of people who actually leverage looking at this lab test are older adults with multiple chronic conditions. And then we look at social media. We're trying to find on social media website what kind of questions are being asked by patients when they ask lab results related questions, and also what kind of replies do they receive, what kind of information do they get from those lab test results related answers. And then we obtain some insights, we categorize responses and questions into different groups. And in this study, we perform a user-centered design to design a very low fidelity prototype of a visualizing lab test result using, as you will see, the gradient color coding, and also providing some sort of lab test result interpretation. But here we only provide interpretation to lab test names, and allowing patients to highlight certain keywords and store this information into their personal health libraries. So we primarily at that time, we'll look at how these different type of features would help patients better understand medical information and potentially engage in their care for health outcome improvements. And we have seen some preliminary feasibility in its efficacy. And regardless, in the more recent time, what we're trying to really achieve is to really think about the factors that are influencing understanding of lab test results, and also producing some of the preliminary resources for us to develop a tool called LabGenie that can provide patients a more tailored visualization of lab test results, and also assisting them with tailored question prompt so that they can ask their physicians during the patient consultation. We initially also intended to provide lab results interpretation, but later figured that it is still answer question that it is ready for AI to do that type of answering. I'm going to present some of the results here in today's presentation as well. So in my ISL planning grant, which we're very, very grateful from the support from ISL, we primarily conducted 3 studies. In the first study, we conducted online survey to look at the factors influencing the understanding of lab results. And this study has been completed, and we're about to submit this paper to JMIR, Journal of Medical Internet Research. And then we also conducted a systematic scoping review of the research related to the use of any effort that look at lab results and understanding of the lab results reporting and understanding of information. We also conducted a study that annotating the lab results interpretation from health-related resources, and then providing what we call a knowledge graph that visualizes those information. So this study has been presented and published in American Medical Informatics Association last week in New Orleans. And also this semester, I'm actually on sabbatical. So I actually did, I'm currently a guest researcher at National Center for Biotechnology Information, NCBI, which is part of National Library of Medicine. So I work with my host, Dr. Zhe He, to conduct a study that evaluates large language models on answering lab test result questions. And this study also has been, it's almost completed, and we're hoping to, to publish this work soon. So in today's lecture, in today's presentation, I'm going to give you some idea about what we have done in these 3 major studies. So for the survey study, we conducted online survey of 276 adults in the US. Primarily, the source of participants come from 2 sources. One is from our ISL volunteer registry, which has over 3,000 participants. And we recruited 50+ participants from this registry by sending emails, recruitment email to them, and also providing a draw to 5 Amazon gift card. And then we also conducted this survey on Amazon Mechanic Turk platform, in which I think we provided $1.5 or something, $2 for each participant who participated in this study online. So on this platform, we collected 220 responses. So in total, we had 276 complete responses from these 2 platforms. And as I mentioned, we primarily wanted to look at the factors that influence the understanding of lab test results. So we look at lab test result comprehension as our dependent variables, for which we use 2 ways to measure it. One way is more of a objective way to measure comprehension, self-perceived understanding. And also another way is one is subjective measurement of understanding. Another one is more of an objective measurement of lab results comprehension, which we use 21 questions to evaluate which questions are normal, which results are normal versus abnormal. And then regarding the independent variables, we'll look at numeracy scales, e-health literacy, demographic characteristics, health status, frequency of doctor visit, access to lab results, and internet general technology use. Most of this, all of this independent variables come from established and validated scales that are available and widely used before. So here are some of the questions we have used in our survey. So regarding the subject understanding of lab results, we basically look at 9 different major panels of blood lab test result or urine lab test result, and then ask the participants whether they found the results difficult to understand or easy to understand. So later we figure that this is something that we potentially need to further develop, because many patients, if they have not ever tested for such things, they probably don't have an idea about whether the results are easy to understand or not. And this is how we measure the objective comprehension of lab test result. In this particular evaluation, we look at giving a very specific use case and this hypothetical scenario, and ask them the participant to look at the lab results reporting, given the lab test name, the result value, the reference range, and ask them which lab tests are considered as abnormal. And then we look at not only the lipid panel, we also look at the blood pressure panel, HbA1c panel, and a metabolic panel. So we look at 21 questions in total. So this will be considered as what we call objective understanding of lab results comprehension. So essentially, if the participant check those abnormal results, but they're not actually abnormal, we consider the results to be wrong. If they shouldn't check a particular question to be abnormal, and they check, it means that the patient didn't understand the lab information. And we understand this might not be the best way to measure comprehension of lab results. So we're still, kind of developing additional resources, additional research in understanding how to better measure this information. As I mentioned, we also look at access to lab results, look at how do they typically get access to lab test results, and also rank different ways for which they, from which they inform the lab results are being informed to them, and also asking them, why they don't use lab patient portals to view lab test results. So there are some interesting results there, and also how they are typically informed of abnormal results, and how do they usually do when they receive abnormal lab test result. Regarding numeracy skills, so we look at two different numeracy skills. One is subjective numeracy skills, 3-item measure. So they ask you your subjective understanding of numbers, medical statistics, and also how do you feel comfortable with medical information in the use of lots of statistics. Another one is a hint survey, which is conducted by the National Cancer Institute, Health Information Internet Trend Survey, and this also provides some numeracy skills that also ask people's self-perceived efficacy in understanding numeric information. So the reason why we look at the two different scales is because in this pilot study, we want to look at which numeracy skills will give us the most variance in our population so that they can be used as a more reliable way to measure numeracy skills, because this is one of the major independent variables we're looking at. And in terms of e-health literacy, so we're focused on e-health literacy because the patients are looking at online information, access to health information, and they want to know whether they actually search for health information online, and where do they search for health information? Do they find health information online helpful? So there is an 8-item e-health literacy scale published by Norman in 2006. So this is the e-health literacy skills we adopted, and starting there are other e-health literacy skills we can look at. But because we conduct this online survey, so we have to account for the complexity of conducting online survey format and what kind of skills are going to be easily administered online. So regarding data analysis, we certainly perform power analysis to look at how many participants we need for this study. And also using this power analysis, we found 240 is the sample size necessary if we want to obtain a medium effect at alpha 0.05. So we perform descriptive statistics and as well as multivariate regression to look at predictors for general lab test result comprehension. So this is the demographic information. As you can see, we have a fairly good representation of older adults above 50 years old. And even if we break it down to 50 to 64 or 64 above, I think our participants who are above 65 years old should account for about 30% of the entire cohort, which is a pretty good representation because we leverage ISL registry for that purpose. So we have a fairly good balance between male and female, even though female actually are more represented. I think this is the case for a lot of online surveys. And this is our race breakdown, employment status, education status, and also numeracy skills, e-health literacy skills, and a comprehension score for our participants. We think that based on the standard deviation, the results are actually quite promising because we have seen some good variance in our population. So I'm going to present some of the interesting results here. So first of all, the barriers to use patient portals to access lab results. So we stratify this analysis by age groups. So for both age groups, younger age groups, and also older age groups, we found that people actually prefer the doctor to explain their test results to them, which is a most chosen answer, followed by I don't know, although I don't know how to interpret lab results values, or I don't care to know unless I have abnormal test results. So this actually is quite interesting because it means that many people still don't understand lab results. So this is the reason why we are motivated to do this research for sure. So this is a table showing our logistic regression result. So we examine predictors across different access to results via patient portal. So compared to younger adults, which is our reference group, 18 to 34 years old, the adults between 65 to 50 to 65 plus years were more likely to access patient results via patient portal. This is a little counterintuitive in a sense that we actually typically think that older people are less likely to use any technology. But this could be the case because we're working with ISL registry, and a lot of our participants are college professors, graduates from state governments, so they might have higher education and the more more adoption to a better adoption to health technology to health IT technologies. And also we found that e-health literacy was also a significant predictor of accessing lab results via patient portal, which also makes sense because these people tend to seek online information more, so they might be more willing to more lean to more amenable to using patient portal to access lab information. And this shows that when patients, after receiving lab test results, about 80% of them actually wanted to follow up with their doctor, and about 50% of them wanted to do more research online. And this is especially the case when patients are informed about abnormal test results online. So this is our regression result showing different factors that influence general comprehension of lab test results. So we found that the higher comprehension of lab results was observed among women than men, and also men are 51% than women reporting poorer general comprehension of lab results. And then we also using this multiple regression to found that the factors that determines the significant association to comprehension results, including the numeracy scales, the age, and also the race. We found that higher scores on numeracy scales significantly predicted higher objective lab test results scores, and also respondents' age significantly predicted their general understanding of comprehension. And this means that for each 1 year increase in age, there is a 0.356 increase in general comprehension of lab results. And also, these are all the significant factors with a less than 0.05 p-value. And this is what we actually initially proposed for the LabGenie project. So in LabGenie project, what we're trying to achieve is we want to look at patients' electronic health records and be able to pull these records automatically to our expert system to tailor their question based on their lab results and also their contextual health information. We also want to look at other similar cases from other patients, and so that we can provide more kind of similarity based recommendations of question prompt. And then we want to be able to push this to patient portal so that when they get the results, they know how to interpret, where their lab results are, what their trend, what health information sources that they can use to better understand this information, and also different question prompt that they can follow up with their doctor with. So with this particular framework in mind, our initial study was focused on looking at how to better organize online information about lab results in interpretation in a readily robust framework, so that we can automate some of this suggestion, recommendation of question prompt to patients. So in this AMIA paper we presented last week, we primarily focused on information extraction from a consumer-friendly website for enhancing lab results reporting in patient portals. So this work essentially demonstrates the feasibility of doing this type of extraction automatically from consumer-friendly health articles. And this could build a foundation for enhancing patient portals to provide tailored information support for lab results. So we are NLP researchers, natural processing researchers. So we follow the standard practice, best practice for developing knowledge bases using grounded natural processing pipeline, including getting the data from the website and annotating those data, and then curating those data, and then performing some sort of machine learning and natural processing to extract such information and see whether this model can be used in other sources. So what we do is that we look at a website called Healthy Me, which contains lab results comprehension, articles like this one. So we're primarily focused on the sections on lab results interpretation section, and this provides the the how to interpret the lab results. So we also look at the definitely the value of the lab test name, and also the other alternative name, and also what is the substance for which this lab test was drawn from. And we developed this like annotation strategy, and hoping to be able to automatically extract such information. And this work was actually done in 2001 to 2002, where I work with 4 undergraduate students in a Europe program at FSU developing this. So I first of all, work with my PhD student to develop this annotation guideline. And then iteratively, we train our undergraduate student to annotate this information on an online portal called Inception, and then assess the interoperability. And then separate once the interoperability is sufficiently high, we can later automate this they can later separately annotate this information on different articles. And this is the example annotation, the lab name, alternative lab name, different value ranges, and also different conditions on value ranges. For example, in this particular lab test, PSA, the value ranges should be interpreted by different age group. And also there might be some interpretation indication of particular lab test results that we should be annotating. And then this is the different entity types we annotated, and number of occurrences in our corpus. We actually working with 200 plus 250 articles. So let me mute people who are making noise in the back end. Okay, so this is the different relationship. Sorry, this is the we also annotated relationships, but we're gonna I'm just gonna skip that for a little bit. And this is the typical NLP work pipeline, where we kind of annotate this, and then we train the machine learning model, transformer-based large language model, to automatically recognize those terms by splitting the data into training, validation, testing, and then see how these different transformer models can fairly accurately extract this information and be able to label those different terms on this term type automatically. So we use the linear matching, which means that as long as the extracted term has overlap with the original annotated term, we consider this as a true match. Otherwise, it's a false match. So the results are fairly robust and accurate. And we also link this entities terms to standardized vocabularies in medicine, because in the future, we want to be able to automatically recognize those information from electronic health records. So we want you to kind of identify those information from records by mapping those names to standardized codes in StoneMed CT, which are used for reference terminology for medicine, LOINC, which are primarily used for lab test names. ARCS norm is for medication. ICD-10-CM is mostly used for diagnosis medical conditions. We use a tool called the BioPortal to recognize those concepts and link them to ontologies. And then we use a system called Neo4j to convert this annotation to a knowledge graph. So as you can see in this knowledge graph, this lab test can have multiple different type of value ranges, and each value range may have different conditions. So this information, even though you only see visualization here, it can be used for inference, can also be used for automated processing internally to provide a tailored question prompt recommendation. So, for example, in this feasibility study, we can ask we can provide the question that we can generate, including question like, for example, procedure-related question, like, is my abnormal results due to recent surgery? That's because based on this annotation, this high-level value may be due to stress from surgery. So if we can find there's a surgery that procedure code in EHR, we can generate this kind of question to patients. And also condition-related question is my abnormal results due to liver disease. or is manual coagulation test result due to use of heparin, because those information are in our knowledge graph. So we can automatically generate that. So in a third study, which I'm going to quickly go over, I think this is actually what everyone is trying to figure out, is whether large language models is going to be sufficient for answering lab test result questions. So as you know, in the past year, we have seen tremendous amount of growth in the area of large language models. And because those models are trained with a huge amount of corpus, with a very big number of parameters, so they can enable a lot of different type of applications. And also in biomedicine, we have seen the similar trend that people are developing different language models. And actually, even though ChatGPT or GPT variations are now being seen as like AI machinery, actually the large language models has been actually existing for many years. When I started my career at FSU, I started some of earlier research using technology like word-to-vec and the glove to perform things like entity recognition or relationship extraction. And gradually, because of the wide use in the industry and academics, there are more and more language models are being developed. And this is also being pushed by the by the GPU performance, and also those large companies developing those resources and models. So this tree I think is quite amazing, and it was created by my colleague at the Rice University, Dr. Hua's group, Dr. Hu's group. And we first of all look at ChatGPT answering some of these questions, just by kind of quickly throwing some questions and let's see how they respond to those questions. We initially thought, okay, they're actually pretty good in getting a lot of these question answered, and then we look at literature and trying to figure out what have been done previously by others, in terms of quantifying the effectiveness and health conversation by generative AI. So there was one paper published, all of this paper were published in 2023, as you can imagine. And this paper give you some metrics to evaluating the answers provided by language models. And this paper was conducted by the European Federation of Clinical Chemistry and Laboratory Medicine. They're trying to do is they evaluate the responses to lab results related questions, and then especially focus on ChatGPT and pointing out it may provide some superficial answers because ChatGPT is based on GPT-4 3.5 or GPT-4, which are trained on general purpose corpus, not specifically fine-tuned or refined by medical related questions. And then there is a paper also published recently in Clinical Chemistry where they want to ask the doctors who are treating patients. And because when doctors treat patients, they may also found patients' medical data or lab test results confusing. So they might ask questions to ChatGPT, and then they want to be able to evaluate whether those results are credible, accurate, or confusing. And because those questions are super complicated, I look at the results, the question they ask, I don't even understand what they're trying to ask to language models. So the results actually are not surprising that they found ChatGPT cannot provide can only provide correct information to about 50% of those questions asked by physicians. But as you know, in my research project, LabGenie, what we're trying to ask is whether we can provide good answers to or support to patients for patient-related questions. So that's why we want to conduct this study where we want to, first of all, collect patients' questions from social media. Because as you know, previously we look at Yahoo Answer. Yahoo Answer is a general purpose Q website that provide QA platform. And we first of all look at health categories. And under health categories, we also look at the questions that have lab test name mentions. And then because a lot of lab test questions may not be actually related to lab test result interpretation. So what we did is we asked my Europe students, undergraduate student, to manually annotate those 500 questions and determine which questions are about lab results, questions on which one are not. And then we train the BERT model, which is also large language model for classifying those questions into different categories. And then we were able to achieve a pretty high accuracy in classifying those. And after we classifying questions, we manually choose 53 questions that are about lab test results comprehension. And then we generated, this is our classification result using different language models with F1 score of 76%, which is considered as pretty good because we're able to have to achieve a fairly good recall because we want to be able to identify all the questions that are actually about lab results comprehension. So the recall is actually preferred metric. And then we evaluate 4 different language models, including GPT-4, which is a most recent version of ChatGPT, and MetaAlpaca is a model by Stanford University, and Llama 2 is created by Meta AI, and this is one of the most popular open source language models that are currently being used and available. And also another one is Oka Mini, which is based on Llama 2 model and trained additionally with additional corpus. And then we evaluated on different metrics. So what we do is that because Yahoo Answer have patient answered by other patients, and then those language models can also generate new answers. So we can compare the language model generated answers to patient answers and see how they differ or different, how they are similar or different. So we look at different metrics, and these metrics are previously oftentimes used in other work. And we found that some of this work are mostly focused on the similarity between string matching, whether a string matches the reference answer match the candidate answer. And also there are some metrics like BERT score, which converts the sentences into summation of cosine similarities between tokens in this embedding. So which means that if the actual word or term used in reference answer to the candidate answer are not actually the same token, if they're semantically similar, they can be recognized as similar terms. So this would be a more accurate way to measure the differences between different answers. So here are some of the answers produced by large language models. So as you can see, this is the same question, and we can see there's other responses. It seems that Llama 2 oftentimes perceive itself as a health expert. So they want to provide answers from a perspective of health experts, which I think is actually not a good thing because you would imagine that patients they have to be very careful when they see any kind of responses. You have to be very careful saying some providing some disclaimer that you're actually not a medical professional. And this is Oka Mini, which is again based on Llama 2. So not surprisingly, the answers provided by Oka 2, Llama 2, Oka Mini, and the Llama 2 are quite similar. And this is the answer provided by ChatGPT-4, and which is very comprehensive. And you can see, they actually say, I'm not a doctor, but I can try to give you some general information to help you understand that result better, which is a very good disclaimer. And also at the end, they say oftentimes they say you have to check with your medical professionals to make sure that you can interpret this result correctly. And this is a MetaAlpaca result, which is very simple and succinct. And then this is human answer. So human answers are actually oftentimes even worse. So this is the human answer to this question. As you can see, this one is already pretty long. But this answer to this question is very simple. They just say your hormone appears normal for age. I doubt that you're going through menopause because it is possible due to your constant contraception that you haven't had any period. And this also is also a very simple answer provided to a very complicated questions. So in this particular scenario, actually we found that language models can provide even better explanation of the lab test results compared to human answers. So this is a comparison with different ground truths, different evaluation metrics. In this work, we use different ground truths using the human answer as ground truth. We're using different language model answer as ground truth and comparing all the different type of answers to this ground truth answer. We found that actually, if you compare all the different language model to human answer, the similarities are very low because human answers are quite short and language model answers are quite long. But if you compare ChatGPT, using ChatGPT as the baseline ground truth, the responses provided by Llama 2 model and Oka Mini are actually quite similar. So if you this is especially true if you look at BERT score, which considers semantic similarities between the answers. So we think that based on this simple comparison, ChatGPT-4, Llama 2, and Oka Mini actually are doing a pretty good job, just by looking at the how comprehensive they are in answering those questions. But again, this automatic evaluation certainly is not going to be efficient. So what we do is we evaluate this also with medical experts. So we focused on 4 different metrics. The relevance means whether the results provided by language models actually are addressing the questions asked by in the question. And the correctness is the accuracy or scientific and technical accuracy of those AI interpretation, explanation. Helpfulness is very important. It means that whether results are going to be really helpful for patients to get deeper insights into lab test question, and also enhancing patients' comprehension of lab test results, and also whether the results pose potential harm to to whatever. So because sometimes the results are not going to be useful, they may even pose negative consequences. So this is how we evaluate it. We kind of give this 5 different questions, which selected 7 questions, and also 5 different answers from 4 different language models, and also human answer to medical experts. We ask 5 different clinical experts who are primary care physicians, and they ask them to rank these different scores to different questions from very high to very low. So lower value means better. So here the result shows that ChatGPT beat all the other answers significantly with the average evaluation score of between 1 to 2. And the human answers actually are among the worst answer compared to other language model generated answer. So this also shows some good promise. But again, because this work is a very preliminary work, and we really didn't delve too much deeper into this answers. In the future, we can also look into, for example, how to better structure questions in a way that make your answer more accurate. So that's called prompt engineering. And also another way is to ask follow-up questions. That approach is called chain of thoughts. So those type of approaches are oftentimes used in language model related research. So again, because our work is more focused on lab results comprehension, so certainly we want to be able to look at multiple standard way for understanding lab test results. So we're now standardizing those lab results interpretation by credible sources like Stanford Medicine, like American Association for Clinical Medicine. There are a couple of places which provide lab results interpretation. So we're trying to standardizing them and normalizing them. We also can adjust normal ranges on gender, race, and seasonality, because recently we found there was actually an article by my colleague from Denmark that provide population-wide analysis of hospital laboratory tests to see how these different lab tests actually vary across a year. Sometimes the lab test results may go higher, may go lower based on the temperature of the particular season. And certainly we are very interested in looking at opportunity to augment language models with credible health information sources, because one major challenges with the language model is that it's black box and nobody knows what actually behind the scenes in terms of providing those answers. So we don't know how to better, kind of provide reference to those resources. And there is a technique called retrieval augmented language models, which basically limit your search of answers within relevant articles that they retrieve using credible search engines like PubMed or Google that allows you to focus on those articles instead of looking at broadly on the internet. And also we're interested to developing this prototype to provide tailored visualization of lab results and tailored questions, and then evaluate whether this would improve self-efficacy in patient communication with physicians, behavioral intention to follow up with the providers, and also understanding of lab results. So this particular work now is being considered by AHRQ. So we are really hopeful that if we can get it funded, we can really go there and develop our initial version of this prototype. So with that, I just want to acknowledge all of my support from my student, my postdoc, my collaborators who have supported this research over the past 4 years. And we're looking forward to see the next phase of this project. So I have a few minutes for questions.
Thank you so much. Again, a wonderful presentation to get us all thinking about a very important topic that particularly some of us older folks see a lot, which is lots of lab tests that need to be interpreted. Yeah, question up, Naya, is it?
Yeah, hi. Thank you, Dr. He. As always, great work. So my question is regarding the annotation part where you create the knowledge graphs. So when you create the knowledge graph, is it specific to a patient or it is for the entire data set?
It is not for patient, it is for like a general understanding and comprehension of lab results, because what we're trying to get is, there are a few sources that provide those credible information about how to interpret lab results. So we're trying to organize those sources because we found that there are different sources that providing, similar information, but not actually the same information. So we want to see kind of, for example, for a particular lab test, what are the possible interpretations? For example, from Mayo Clinic, this is interpretation. From LabCorp, another American Association for Clinical Medicine, there's another interpretation. So we want to be able to consolidate some of this so that we can better later on provide more consolidated presentation to lab results comprehension to patients. And for example, if we see patients having a particular lab results fall into this range, fall into this value or this range, we can look at how to better present that information to these patients. Maybe possibly also some lab results may be depending on like your chronic condition, your medication use, your surgery, your procedure. So if we can extract such information from your EHR medical records, we can tailor this question to say things like, oh, is it because I recently had this surgery so that this particular lab test result is abnormal? So that patients can use this question to follow up with their physicians, because our hypothesis is that for patients, they may not have time to dig into your medical record during that 50 minutes consultation session. So as a patient, we have to be proactive and providing information to physicians so they can actually try to help us understand what's going on behind the scene.
Okay, so in that case, like if from the perspective of a doctor, he can say like from his experience that this particular disease is caused by ABC, or if it is like large language model, because of the knowledge it is trained, it can do that inference. So without using a large language model, how that inference is reached? So this particular liver disease is of the caused by ABC. So how that conclusion is made?
We currently think that we assume that medical doctors have the requisite knowledge and skills to help interpret lab results information. But certainly, we are looking into the use of large language models to provide some aids to physicians, because we don't want a language model to automatically provide solutions or answer to questions without actually any review by physicians, because nobody knows how credible or how accurate those answers are. We certainly don't want to kind of obsolete our professionals. We want to engage our professionals in this workflow, right? So what we're trying to aim to do is, okay, so here is my lab results, here's my medical information. Let me give you tailored questions that you can follow up. At the same time, give you some recommended literature or information sources to help you contextualize this result. And then you can have a better understanding of the information. Perhaps we can even generate responses to those questions, and then you can give this to your physicians or clinicians for them to make sense of, because as informatics researchers, we can never promise our kind of users that whatever generated by AI is going to be accurate, even though there's definitely a lot of things we can do to support, right? We can use augmented retrieval language models approach. We can look at post hoc kind of evaluation, doing some fact check, but those things are not going to be able to completely substitute medical professionals in this clinical decision-making workflow.
Yep. Thank you, Dr. He.
There's a question in the chat. Can you see that?
Okay,
actually, maybe just stop your screen share. You'll be able to.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. I see this. What is the dependency rate of LIM in terms of common uses? I mean, assume I ask a model which is trained in data 2020. I've presented my symptoms, which are minor cold, cough, and fever. Let's say the response I got is misdiagnosed. So should I consider that this databases need to be updated on a regular basis, and how we can handle such large databases, as health data accumulate much faster than new diagnoses every time? I think what you're trying to ask is like, those large language models or AI are trained with old data, and the medical knowledge and information are being updated all the time. And how can these models be able to catch up with the state of art information? So so certainly that's why there are certain things that language model can do fairly good. For example, if we give language model, throw it with a number of different articles, let it summarize it, it does a pretty good job to summarize those things, informations. But when it comes to generating answers, I think there's really a challenge there because the knowledge base used behind those models are based on the corpus used to train these models back in 2019, 2020. But what's really changing is those large companies like Meta AI or OpenAI, they are now also realizing this is a challenge. And what they do is that they also implement some of this retrieval augmented approach into the large model. So nowadays, if you go to ChatGPT or ChatGPT-4, if you search for something, they ask some questions that may warrant search. They actually will perform such a search internally in the system and then summarizing the new results and supplementing their new result or whatever responses generated by the new results to their previous knowledge bases. So they're doing a lot of things behind the scenes, but the challenge is because those companies are commercial companies, they typically don't kind of completely make what they are doing behind the scenes publicly available, transparent, because they have to face, if they do that, then there might be more competitions and it's hard for them to compete in the market. So they have to be cautious in presenting information. So nowadays, they don't even publish the specification of their ChatGPT-4. People are just now guessing why this is better than most other language models in answering those questions. So, and another challenge is that those models, because they keep changing and the answers also keep changing. If you ask the same question today, it might be different from the time we ask the same question like 2 or 3 months later. So how would you be able to account that from scientific research? This is indeed a big challenge. So that's why, for scientific research, we typically want to have a more stable version of language models. Right now, we're focusing more on using Llama 2, which is open source, it's downloadable, it's free. So we can download this model to our machine. And in my lab, we're using a system called long chain to store the model so that we don't have to rely on, something that we are not cannot have control over. So yeah, these all are great thoughts and a lot of ongoing discussion that I unfortunately don't have a clear and good best answer for them. But I think as we're moving forward, we're going to see more and more interesting research results coming out of this.
Thanks so much. Other questions? Let me ask one as well, and I think it speaks a little bit to the way in which you're framing this issue, which is we really need to get the healthcare professionals not replaced by newer technology, but kind of augment their capabilities to some extent, and certainly use the newer technology to augment the capabilities of the general public when they get this type of test information. And that is it's really a question of when a doctor typically interprets a test result, they do it in terms of the norms for the test result, but also perhaps in terms of the history of test results for that particular patient, which is to say, right. Mm-hmm. They have patient-specific information, which a single mm-hmm. query, unless the large language model had the entire history as well, it would mm-hmm. not be potential in as good a position to understand, for instance, mm-hmm. the urgency or the significance mm-hmm. of a particular mm-hmm. value. So if you have a high value, but mm-hmm. a year before you had an even higher value, you're kind of going mm-hmm. in the right direction.
Right.
And your physician,
that's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah, mm-hmm. has that knowledge. And so there are mm-hmm. kind of two potential solutions I could see to that. One of them is that you have to develop patient-centric sensitization procedures for the existing models. That is, feed the patient's entire data set into these models when hoping to get more accurate information. Mm-hmm. Maybe the other approach is that you have to be able to train the patient to submit not just one report, but multiple reports into the query, right. which is really, right. I don't know that that's going to be doable, particularly when you deal mm-hmm. with individuals with low health literacy, mm-hmm. who don't have high mm-hmm. typing skills, for instance, and mm-hmm. May not even have good reading skills, or maybe have a strong accent, which makes speech recognition a little more difficult for interacting. Most of these systems now are interacted with through typed input, but a lot of them are now language comprehension or speech comprehension rather interfaces are being developed for most of them. So you can get access to ChatGPT-4 through Bing, and if you have a microphone on your system, you can actually be trying to input the data through a more natural process. But what do you think about how we can improve on the way in which these models frame the interpretation of a particular test result, given that there's probably additional test results that the physician is making use of?
Right. I'm seeing this as a really complex issue to address, simply because, as you mentioned, the patient medical history is really important factor when it comes to interpretation. So, for example, when I interact with my physician collaborator, Dr. Karim Hanna from USF Health, and he oftentimes mentioned that he needs to look into medical history of patients, look at previous lab results to be able to make sense of it. And this capacity, I doubt, would be really be able to, would those language models be able to achieve? Be looking at historical data and make sense of historical data, looking at the trends and making sense of it. Because I personally feel like when I did my research, I found like those language models are not doing a good job in answering questions with multiple lab test results, because it's very hard for them to consolidate and create a more cohesive interpretation or overarching comprehension. They are doing good in like individually answer, each individual lab test results separately. So I really doubt that you can actually be able to provide comprehension to multiple lab results, considering all these lab test questions, history information for those. A good point is, I believe going forward, even medical professionals, they may sort of also leverage large language models capability for them to better help, making decisions for patients, because people are limiting, right? People have limited knowledge on things. They can certainly very hard for them to beat like machinery which can read billions of articles. So I believe, in the future going forward, anyone who is going to succeed in whatever do, they have to know what is the best way of utilizing or assisted by AI. So that's definitely a challenge. So I heard one of the famous saying is we're not going to be replaced by AI, but we're going to be replaced by people who know how to use AI. So that's something we have to bear in mind. So don't just feel like AI is going to replace that. Let's not use it. We have to learn how to live with it, how to work with it, and how to best use of it. And also because there's a huge market out there, I believe we're going to see more and more improvement, excitement from them. So we would better go not only catch up, but do get some deeper insights into those technologies, because even then they cannot really help understand how to better use their technology into some of the research that we are interested in doing.
Thank you. We're running a little bit late now. Any other last minute questions? All right, well then let's all thank Dr. He for an excellent presentation. Wish him good luck on the HRQ process, and hopefully we'll hear from you
Fingers crossed.
on the next project.
Perfect. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Thank you, everyone. Have a nice weekend and have a good Thanksgiving holiday. Bye.